Hey, fun fans! We're giving away a Devastator 3 keyboard and mouse combo courtesy of Cooler Master on YouTube for this month of June. All you have to do to enter is subscribe to Fun's YouTube channel and leave a comment on what you think about this year's upcoming game. You can enter once per upload, and we'll pick a winner near the end of June.
Peter, will you talk a little bit about your team and a great Relic recovery season?
Thank you. So one thing I would like to talk about is trial and error and what FTC is really about, because there's a bit of a luck element in that you'll get the right design in the long run. There's a lot of really great teams who spend all their effort and just don't get that critical design that's most effective, which this year I feel like was the dump truck. And it just takes, at the beginning of the season, a lot of ability to like scrap everything and restart to drop a design. Like we started with this claw design originally, which was really complex, and it seemed promising from the beginning of the year, but as we were finding, it was just too slow, and we were farther and farther along. We realized, look, okay, this may not work, and it takes a lot of guts to abandon that and restart midway through the year for the better design, I feel like. And you have to not be afraid to do that. Anyway, more specifically, this year we were continuing our field positioning system. We call it telemetry, but a lot of people corrected me. It's technically odometry, and it uses these small omni wheels on the bottom of our robot to track our position real time. And that's one of our key features of our autonomous mode, because whenever it gets pushed or anything really happens, it knows exactly what's happened and how to correct for it. And we can do some really kind of cool stuff to make it as adaptive as possible, so that no matter what kind of jams happen in the competition, it's still trying its best, if you know what I mean. So like there'd be a lot of rounds where, yes, we didn't get 6 glyphs, but it would still keep trying to get that 4, and it would know when it's jammed, when we have to try again and try for more cubes. And that's really what I feel like it takes to do well in FTC, more than a peak score. Yes, there's a lot of teams that maybe if there was a team that could get 8 glyphs, then once in a while, that's not as good as having that reliable 4, which in FTC you need to stay alive.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had a really awesome season, and people arguably do have a lot, rightfully so, have a lot of questions for you. So one question we have from Discord user Tiny Turtle from 8581 is, how much, if any, CAD do you work with before you build your robot?
So this year we're kind of undergoing a shift. We do a little bit of CAD, but we definitely don't CAD our entire robot, and instead we've gone for rapid prototyping in Lego or in whatever we can grab to get as quickly as possible to hands-on and on the field, so that way we can see mechanically how things work instead of spending too much time on the computer, which really doesn't give you a lot of information on the subtleties, like jamming or all these tiny little problems that show up when you finally implement it, but not when you CAD. However, this year we're starting to CAD a lot more, making a lot of custom parts, because there is a need for custom parts, and it makes your life a lot easier. But for all those new teams out there, you do not need custom parts to do well. You can get away with out-of-the-box materials as long as you know when. As long as you're willing to rapidly iterate and try new designs.
Absolutely. As a follow-up question for that, what is your favorite kind of building system out-of-the-box kit of parts that you guys use?
Oh, we love Octobotics. They have so many holes. Steven would know more about it. Hey, Steven, you want to come talk about Octobotics? No, he doesn't? All right, that's fine. Yeah, so, I mean, we use that for our main drivetrain, but that was... It doesn't really matter, because on top of that we added so many other things like 3D printed parts, for a lot of stuff we really didn't care. We were just more concerned about, okay, what metal do we have lying around, and get as quickly as possible to prototyping instead of worrying about, I want to keep consistent with this system.
So there was a really market shift between your first year, your rookie year, and this year. So I want to ask, how did your early your early stage build process evolve based on your experiences as a rookie? How did you shift the way that you thought about the game?
So for our first year, we kind of had to learn a big lesson the hard way, and that was you have to be fast and you have to be maneuverable, and that complex systems are not always the ones that work. We kind of bit off more than we could handle in our first year, trying to do this auto aim system with a very slow drivetrain that didn't really work in the end. We were debating scrapping it, and in hindsight, I feel like we should have tried for a more simple design, but we didn't. But this year, we were more prepared to do that. We weren't going to have another last year in which we commit all to this design that doesn't really work. So as far as the early stages go, we definitely did. We focused a lot on autonomous because we saw from the beginning that unlike last year, this year there's a set number of points, and the only way to differentiate yourself is in that autonomous mode. So from the beginning, we worked on our telemetry system, of course, got that more accurate, 3 dimensions, very little loss in that, so that way once the season started, we already really had the infrastructure we needed to get started.
Wow. Yeah, Oh, go ahead.
As I say, it makes a lot of sense because for those that possibly don't know, this is one of the first years that I can think of where scoring was really limited. Most years it's pretty unlimited, as I say. There's always an unlimited factor, and this year that unlimited factor was an autonomous, which is really hard. But as we can see from this season, Gluten Free really capitalized on that. And you guys had I think at one point your highest was a 6 glyph, or did you guys have a 7 or 8?
No, we had 6 glyph. No.
6 glyph, which really differentiates you, and that was the unlimited factor this year, which is a big change from past years.
Honestly, though, there is a counterpoint to that, and although we thought that yes, it's technically that's the only way to differentiate yourself, as confirmed in qualifier matches. During finals, the game does change a little bit. In which, apart from disconnects, I feel like you have to keep in mind if you're shooting for those last few rounds, you have to keep in mind defense, in which the game changes. I don't think there were very, very few rounds with 4 ciphers, and it almost didn't seem possible going into finals, because I just feel like you have to be the one to win the race, or otherwise you're dealing with the crappiest cubes. Apart from all the stuff that happened in finals 1, we ended up with 2 glyphs that were behind some balancing stone on the other side, and that's because they won. They were faster, be it because disconnects or what have you, which I'm not saying we're better. I'm just saying it's unproven for that point. But I feel like that match showed that you have to be the first, and they were the first regardless of how. And I don't know. Then the unlimited part of it kind of changes, if you know what I mean.
Definitely.
Now speed actually does matter.
So just to follow up on that, so what kind of defense did you guys face at Worlds or even at Super Regionals?
So the biggest team was Crank and Pinion, and they played a nasty defense against, they coordinated their partner in one of the rounds to block us from that second crypto box. That was always the sweet spot because you could get the most bang for your buck there. And it forced us to go over the balancing stone almost every time, which severely slowed us down. We still did double cipher and we still did win the match, but it was a lot harder, and it was an effective use of their partner. I thought this is how the game should be played. We should be defended here, and everything about that I liked, honestly.
Wow, that's actually super impressive. seeing how you guys were able to adapt to that defense. I was watching that match, and
Thank you.
I thought it was smart what Crack and Pinion did, but I thought it was even smarter the way that you guys were able to work around that.
Thank you.
So another question that we have is, I know that you said Actibotics was your preferred build system of choice, but do you see any advantages that Tetrix holds over Actibotics?
I don't know. I don't think it. We prefer Octobotics, but we used Tetrix our first year, and it still works. It's still metal. It's whatever. I feel like there's this craze to what is the optimal building system, but it's more like it's kind of like in programming where it's like what language do you use? It doesn't matter. It matters what you do with it. So I mean, I'm not the builder, so I cannot answer those type of questions, unfortunately. But I can answer more generally, yeah, that don't stress out so much about what you're using. If it works, it works. Metal is metal, be it Tetrix, or Octobotics, or what have you.
As a quick follow-up question, do you feel that Lego has any advantages over Tetrix?
Lego is about 100 times stronger, I believe. I'm just kidding. The Lego, I mean, it's just we had it lying around. It's again that whatever we had, but it's fast to build with. If you don't need metal, it's also very flexible. So for the ball, that worked out nicely, and we could rapidly test ideas. We originally had a lot more Lego, but we started like slowly converting it to metal as things started to break. But it worked. It totally like worked. And Velocity Vortex, we actually built an entire Lego shooter. We bought these like Lego metal axles. They were so strong, but like they would rip apart their gears. But it sort of worked.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's Steven. Steven did Lego League, and he like won the World Festival for.
Oh, congratulations, Steven!
Well, not champions, but like the performance. Yeah, so he's pretty much a Lego genius. So.
So now, like, transitioning a bit into the more technical aspects of things, like, what was your favorite match? Like, you guys have played some phenomenal matches, but if you were to choose one, what would you say had the best feel for you? Like, as a driver?
Favorite match. I'll have to think about that one. So.
I know that's a tough question.
Yeah. There was definitely one where we were playing. I feel like every time in finals, the first round you have trying out with that alliance is definitely one of the most stressful because you just don't know if your robots truly cooperate well until they're tested. And one of those ones was in our first. I forget how this one went. No, it wasn't this one. There was one. Yeah, it's always stressful, but like ours didn't go too well. There was one. I think it was the last round before. It was the second to last round before Ford Field, so it was Division Finals 1.
Okay.
Anyway, so we ciphered really, really quickly, and I don't like. You know what? I'm very hesitant to pick that round because Crank and Pinion's collector broke or motor broke or what have you. So that's not really that wasn't really fair to play against them with their entire mechanism dead. I'm as you can see, I'm like really against assuming you've won just because you played with someone and they DC or what have you. And it was you can see it there. It was really sad. Oh wait, no, that's not the round. But it was really sad to see that we weren't able to play against our other alliance's best because I mean they worked all this time and they just had some random luck element go wrong. So I don't know. I like the 6 glyph round. There was only one round we got 6 glyphs and it was at Super Regionals. The world's cubes were so not squishy and they were new and they were great, but our collector was designed for squishier cubes, so we had very few 6 glyphs. I don't think we ever got 6 glyphs in Worlds, which is just to say how finicky it is. But yeah, definitely that one round where we got 6 in Super Regionals. It looked all good from there. That was probably one of my favorite rounds.
Yeah. Moving.
For sure.
Changing topic a little bit, what are your plans for next year? Are you adding team members? Are you doing anything new? Or is it just you and your brother?
Yeah. So I want my sister to take on programming. I don't think she wants to though, so you should all like persuade her. But likely that's not going to happen, and it's probably just going to be us two again. Obviously we're looking. It would be nice to have a drive coach, but unfortunately with the resources available, it's just so hard to include someone new who hasn't been on, and now we have to bring them up to speed. And since Steven and I are brothers, we're always meeting, and I feel like it would feel a little bit exclusive if someone else were to come in and, I don't know, and they're seeing all every week our robot like completely changes. And it would be hard. I guess from a programming standpoint, you could do it. So if there was someone to help me, but I don't know. I think we're just going to stick with this. I like the specialization because I get to do all the code, and Steven gets to do all the mechanics. And I feel like an advantage of that is that when there's a bug, I always have the hunch of like where it is because I've just done everything. Whereas a lot of other teams, they have a lot of people, and it's hard to find a bug where not everyone knows everything. Now, there are a whole bunch of other advantages to having more people. I'm not saying don't be the only programmer or what have you. But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it works for us, and we're a bit of an exception, not the norm for organization. And I think we're going to keep it that way.
Well, that's pretty interesting, yeah. And I really enjoyed that dynamic personally, like watching you two being drivers. It's very fun to see.
Thank you.
But that brings me into my next question, and that's what do you guys feel that there's some that you have some sort of disadvantage because you guys don't have a driver coach, and how do you work around the fact that you don't have a driver coach?
We definitely do have a disadvantage. I mean, it's 3 people versus 2. It's more power when you have a driver coach. So that's basically falls on me to do, which I'm not good at because I cannot remember anything, as you can already see. And so it's hard. We have to practice. We have to practice a lot, and it's more. There's so many things you have to care about on my end, at least. Like not only am I looking at the robot, but I also got to look at the timer. I got to look at what cipher we're doing, what ciphers are possible, because we want to keep as many open as possible. And it's hard, I'm not going to lie. And I've messed up a bunch of times, and it costs us points. But, yeah, I would definitely say that's a disadvantage. But it's just like kind of what we have with the resources we have.
Well, I think that's a very unique insight to that, because personally, like, I don't see that much of a disadvantage not having a driver coach, but I know that I'm the exception. But like, it's really interesting to see what it really affects on a drive team. So, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's not like it's a huge impact, but it's nice to have a driver coach.
I have one more question. Do you guys use Modern Robotics or Rev?
We use Modern Robotics. The reason for that is because Rev was new, and with any new system, there's always going to be problems. Like, for example, we came from Lego League, and we were around during the transition from NXT to EV3. Oh. And the initial year, the first year that EV3 was released, it was a train wreck. There were software errors, there were firmware errors, and it wasn't like bad for like the majority of like little kids using it, which is why Lego released it. But for an FLL standpoint, there were problems, and we had to wait for firmware releases and updates for that to become a more robust system. And it was our instinct here. We already have MR working. To not transition right away because it's just a big risk element. And and also we had a bit of an exception. We were very much debating switching midway through the year because it was starting to look good, but we required really, really fast update rate for our telemetry trackers, which are our odometry free spinning wheels. And we were using encoders on them that could only track one rotation, so they would wrap around to 0 again. And to catch that at high speeds with Android, which is an open operating system, it was very difficult, and we couldn't. With Rev, the problem is they have I think they might have fixed it now, which is why we're waiting. But they had a blocking read on the I2C or analog ports. We were using analog, and it severely slowed down our ability to pull those trackers, resulting in what we would expect were a lot of miscaught wraparounds in the end telemetry error. So yeah, we were a bit of an exception there as far as that. We were like kind of hard limited to Rev.
Modern robotics, yeah.
I mean, sorry, yeah, modern.
Yeah.
So we have, I think, time for 2 more questions. One of the questions is, what encoders did you use on the free spinning wheels?
So we used these MA3 encoders. They were analog, and a lot of people ask us this, and I really don't think it matters that much. It really doesn't. The encoders are almost never the bottleneck. In fact, it's the MA3s made it extremely hard because of that wraparound bug, and you can get away with any type of other encoder you like. I want to deter people from just picking MA3s because we picked MA3s. We needed the ports, and we just searched, and they seemed to be the best one. But there could be a new encoder that surpasses them, or what have you, or you just don't have the money for it. It doesn't really matter. The encoders don't make that much of a difference. Now the MA3s, they are magnetic, so we had an issue last year with the old Tetrix encoders. We mounted them on one of our drive axles that was weight bearing, so it had all this crap get into it, and they're optical encoders, right? So they were starting to miss a lot of ticks, and our telemetry system was pretty much down in worlds because of that problem. So we were just spooked from last year where we mounted them on a weight bearing thing. Word of advice: don't mount encoders to take on weight. Yeah, it was our first year, a little bit rough. Yeah, so yeah, it doesn't really matter. We just chose these because we wanted a magnetic encoder. They were analog, and don't get too hung up on it.
And then, yeah, that makes sense. And then our last question is, what was the hardest part of the build season?
Oh, the hardest part had to be one of the times there was some problems. Right. So at the beginning of after we transitioned to, or like during our transition to where we were dropping our first design, we were pioneering this entire vision system to navigate to the CryptoBox. We almost had it working. We had it tracking the CryptoBox. It could see it from almost anywhere, and it could track it. We had vision for almost everything. I mean, cubes was hard, but we almost had cubes as well. And we found out that it was just too slow, and there was just always so many bugs with it, and the amount of complexity required was just not worth it. So, and in addition, you have to mount your phone in a way that can see the crypto key as well as be in the right position to see everything else, which was a big constraint. Yeah, so that section during the beginning, it was not necessarily looking good because it just seemed like everything was super complex, and there was that whole scramble for vision. And I don't know, I felt like we were putting our effort too hard into vision just for the sake of vision.
And then I guess I said it was the last question. I'll do one more because I actually want to know this. If you're willing to answer, what is Gluten Free's budget, and how do you guys fundraise?
I think
that was from someone from Eric.
5,000 about. We do practically no fundraising because we are 2 people, and our parents are very, very generous. Yeah, so it definitely doesn't get us a lot of awards, but so we do pretty much no fundraising. Did we ever do anything? I mean, we do a little bit of outreach, not much. But yeah, it's just one of those things that being two people, we just don't have the people to do. Maybe next year we could start doing it since we already have all this infrastructure, but there was always a bigger thing to do on the robot. So yeah, 5,000 for this year, which was more than last year, surprisingly, since we already had the field. We went through a lot of like trials of different wheels, which were very expensive. Like, yeah, so I mean, our final robot wasn't even that much. It's just like all the stuff that you buy during the season that you think is going to work, but then doesn't.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah, like that's 90% of it at least. The actual robot isn't actually that much.
That's true, and especially when you do the kind of iteration that you were talking about like actually going through robots instead of just parts, that really can add up. So.
Agreed. Yeah.
Even that you guys could keep it under 5,000 for the whole season is still impressive.
That's
to me.
impressive. That's so impressive.
Like,
We definitely weren't under
pretty
that.
low budget, really, for an FTC scale program.
Yeah.
So
Really?
yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that's very impressive. I gotta say.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I just never had the perspective. It's just like $5,000. Like that's a lot of money, but
It feels like more than it is in FTC.
yeah, it's
Always.
like you spend 100 here, spend 100 there, and you don't really
can
notice
add up
it.
quick.
You're like, oh.
Oh, we need
That's a lot of
4
money.
$30 servos. No big deal.
Yeah, there was we used some juicy servos that were rather ear piercing.